Time being 7 o'clock, I call the Hastings City Council meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome, and let the roll reflect. We do have a quorum tonight. Tonight is always a special meeting because we have a couple proclamations for the month of March. And first off, we will have a proclamation supporting Hastings Family Service and their March Food Month. And Councilmember Pembo, would you please start? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember.
Thank you.
Flip that. Sorry.
Whereas Minnesota Food Share March campaign has helped restock food shelves throughout the state of Minnesota for 45 years, and
whereas Hastings Family Service has been helping neighbors in our community meet their basic needs of food, housing, transportation, and clothing for 55 years, and
whereas all programs and services at Hastings Family Service are made possible by 550 volunteers in a supportive community that believes in neighbors helping neighbors, and
whereas Hastings Family Service provided 3,705 families with over a week's supply of food in 2025, an increase of 39% over the previous year, and
whereas 25,500 neighbors were served in the Hastings Family Service food programs and over 19,000 meals were delivered through Meals on Wheels in 2025, with the need continuing to escalate, and
whereas the generosity of our community makes it possible for Hastings Family Service to provide help and hope to our neighbors and gifts of money and food for proprietary matching the Minnesota Food Share throughout the month of March.
Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Mary Fassbender of the City of Hastings, hereby declare that the Hastings community will fight hunger in our community during the Minnesota Food Share Month campaign by working together to support and restock the market food shelf at Hastings Family Service. And I'd like to invite Amy Sutton up from Hastings Family Service to present her with this proclamation, and I bet she wants to say a few words. I never refuse a microphone.
Thank you, Mayor Mary, City Council members. We really just appreciate the opportunity to be here and the support. This is the 45th year of Minnesota Food Share, and it's so important that it goes well for us. It's a big month because what the proclamation didn't say is while we had a 39% increase this past year, it's been a 278% increase over the past 5 years. And so it continues to escalate, and the help is needed and deeply appreciated. We want to take the opportunity to invite you all to our culminating event for Minnesota Food Share, which is Hastings Tastings on March 30th. Those tickets are on sale now, and a $55 ticket purchase can feed 2 families of 3 to 4 people for a week. So it's another important piece of what we do for the month. And as the proclamation said, the big thing about Minnesota Food Share is that every single pound of food, every dollar is proportionately matched by Minnesota Food Share, so it has an even larger impact. It goes without saying that this has been a time of great uncertainty and unpredictable change for the neighbors that we serve, but Hastings Family Service has been able to keep up with that escalating need because of your support, because we are a community that embodies the idea of neighbors helping neighbors and caring about each other. So thank you for supporting Hastings Family Service and helping us make sure that no one in our community suffers from hunger.
Thank you. Council.
Next year.
Thank you, Council. Our second proclamation tonight is for multiple sclerosis, and we have with us Mary, who is always a huge supporter for us, and we have a proclamation to be read, and Councilmember Pembo, if you would start.
Certainly. Whereas multiple sclerosis is a unpredictable and often disabling disease to the central nervous system, I'm gonna try this year, affecting nearly 1 million people in the United States and most individuals diagnosed between the ages of 20 and 50. Approximately 10,000 children worldwide are living with MS. No one knows the cause or the cure currently existing, and
Whereas the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, founded in 1946, is committed to achieving a world free of MS by raising public awareness, elevating the voices of those affected, transforming what it means to live with the disease, and serving as a driving force in prevention, treatments, and cure-focused research, and
Whereas the National Multiple Sclerosis Society has invested more than $1 billion in groundbreaking research initiatives and aligns worldwide resources to fuel critical efforts aimed at identifying pathways to cures for MS, and
Whereas the Society also invests in the next generation of researchers through fellowships and training programs, contributing to significant breakthroughs in MS research and treatment, and
Whereas the mission of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society is to cure MS while empowering people affected by MS to live their best lives, a mission deserving of the support of all Americans and the residents of Minnesota, and
Whereas the City of Hastings recognizes the importance of finding the cause and cure for MS and expresses its sincere appreciation for the dedication of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society in working towards a world free of MS, and
Now therefore, I, Mayor Mary Fassbender of the City of Hastings, proclaim March 8th through the 14th, 2026 as Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Week, and encourage all Minnesotans to learn more about multiple sclerosis and what they can do to support individuals with MS and their families. Thank you. And now I'll ask Mary to come up and I'll present this to her. I'm sure she would like to say a few words.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman, Mayor Mary. One thing I found, and I remember nearly 1 million people in the U.S. and 2.9 million people worldwide live with multiple sclerosis, far more than previously understood. MS isn't rare, it's just often invisible. The global count keeps rising, not because MS is spreading, but because diagnosis is improving, awareness is growing, and more countries are finally reporting data. So this is personal to me. I've lived with multiple sclerosis for 25 years. But the most exciting thing I want to share with you, with everyone, is this year at the Worldwide Conference of Researchers, they have finally done a breakthrough, and they are starting phase 2 human trials of repairing the myelin, which is the cause of the disability in MS. So for the first time in my lifetime of MS, we have a viable point to slow down, stop, and repair damage. So I'm extremely, and that is all through awareness, of this week. So thank you for your proclamation, and thank you for your support.
right. Council approval of minutes from the February 17th meeting? Okay. Thank you. Comments from the audience. At this time, we will hear comments from the audience. If you'd wish to speak to council at this time, please step forward to the podium, state your name and address, and we will hear your comments. See no one, and no one on Zoom. All right, council items to be considered. We did receive an appeal from Broadway Pizza after the packets went out, so let's move that from the consent agenda to public safety. Council members, are there any council items to be considered other than that? Okay with moving that? All right, council, I would accept the motion for the consent agenda. Councilmember Pemble and a second by Councilmember Verichoff. All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails. Tonight, under awarding of contracts, we have the 2026 Neighborhood Infrastructure Improvements and authorization for advertisement for bids. And for this item, we will have an introduction by our consulting engineer, Cody Matheson. Welcome, Cody.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having me tonight. So tonight is part 2 of, I'll call it our 3-part series for the neighborhood project. So you'll see us one more time on this one. But tonight we are covering the proposed scope and features of the project, and we'll be holding a public hearing for that. I just want to say it's worth noting here at the beginning that we will have a separate hearing on assessments at a later date. That'll be on April 6th. So tonight is covering predominantly the scope and features of the project. So what we'll cover tonight, I'll give a brief presentation, and then we will conduct the public hearing, and ultimately looking for a resolution to approve our plans and specs and then authorize our advertisement for bids. So the 2026 project map you've seen quite a few times now, so I won't belabor this point, but the project includes Pleasant Drive from Trunk Highway 55 to 4th Street and 4th Street West from Pleasant Drive down to River Street. We'll get more into the division of what's taking place in those various segments here as we go along. So as is the goal with the neighborhood infrastructure improvements every year, we're looking to address failing pavement and curbing that's beyond useful life. There's plenty of that on both of those streets if you've driven them recently. It's also a great opportunity to address aging utilities, water mains, sanitary sewers, which we also have a lot of on both these roadways. We like to look at enhancing pedestrian facilities with the level of investment going on these projects. We also look to optimize our street widths for traffic calming and better our O&M and long-term costs going forward on these roadways. So what we're going to be looking at in the reclaim sections, these are sections where we're going to be leaving the existing curb lines largely in place, still doing a relatively robust pavement improvement. The width is going to be varying in those sections right now. We're looking at Pleasant Drive, Trunk Highway 55 to Whispering Lane, a little bit wider section. That's going to remain as it sits today. Same thing with 4th Street from Pleasant Drive to Farm Street. The utilities in these roadway sections are better. They're newer materials. Otherwise, if they're not newer, they just don't require immediate maintenance, so we're able to get a little bit more useful life out of those. That's why we're able to do the reclaim improvement. The reconstruction sections, Pleasant Drive from Whispering Lane all the way down to 4th Street, and then 4th Street from Farm to River, it's a little bit of a different story. I think we were up to 3 water main breaks in 2 years on 4th Street near State, so it's definitely overdue to be hitting the utilities in that portion. And then essentially, as a result of needing to do a full utility reconstruction in these sections, we're going to get all new curb and gutter, new roadway completely. As I mentioned, every year we do take a look at the pedestrian improvements with the City of Hastings neighborhood infrastructure improvements and the people movement plan, which is essentially the guiding document that covers pedestrian improvements that are going to be looked at with any future CIP. So here in this project area, Pleasant Drive and 4th Street, The only addition that was called for was a new trail on Pleasant Drive. So essentially, we looked at both sides with this project, what would be the better side to add the trail. They were both feasible, but ultimately the west side provides better connectivity. There's an existing trail from County Road 42 down to 4th Street already on the west side. And then in 2023, the city invested in a trail from 15th Street down to County Road 46. So this is getting one step closer to having a full trail system on the west side of Pleasant Drive all the way from County Road 42 to County Road 46. We were also able to coordinate with MnDOT to accommodate the proper pedestrian facilities at Highway 55 for getting across there. 4th Street, no additional facilities were identified in the people movement plan, so that sidewalk that exists on the north side today will remain. The one piece that was added after conversations with the operations committee to include in the bid was improvements to the existing trail to Lions Park that starts at Pleasant Drive and 4th Street and makes it into the park. That trail's in pretty rough condition as well, so that is going to be looked to be improved with this project. A very colorful picture of Pleasant Drive here, but just kind of trying to highlight that this roadway has a lot of different demands as you traverse south to north. So the orange section, the southernmost section, is where we've got our turn lanes and accommodations as you approach Highway 55. The sections in yellow, the southernmost section, we've got a really heavy parking demand. That's from the existing townhome complex out there. There's a daycare that's also located in that vicinity. If you've ever driven through that section, you'll see a lot of vehicles parked through there. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The section in green, we see much less parking. Essentially, there's only housing on the west side. This backs up to the CDA parcel. This is going to be an opportunity for us to take that existing 44-foot roadway all the way down to 36 feet, save a lot of pavement, hopefully calm speeds a little bit in that area. So now we're just going to step through some of the highlights of the plan view here in the design. So looking first at one of our larger changes geometrically with the project is looking to narrow at Whispering Lane. And I've got a little bit better picture that zooms in on the issue here following, but in short, it's a challenge to enter and exit at this intersection. There's very poor sight lines. This is also an opportunity that we were able to take to calm speeds and calm traffic along Pleasant Drive because we do have a lot of accesses and a lot of driveways here. We're still massaging some of this intersection with Public Works, some of the geometrics, just to make sure it's maintainable for plow trucks, school buses navigating around here, trying to make sure that all works. So just more so communicating the intent here, and then we're going to sort of iron out the finest details in the last 10% of our design. This map here shows where that division between the two-sided parking and when we'll start to convert to one-sided parking once you get north of having townhomes or businesses on both sides of Pleasant Drive. So the road will start to narrow as you get closer to Westview. It will then widen back out closer to 40 feet when you get to the intersection of 4th Street to accommodate those turn lanes there. Also pictured in this figure that I didn't show or didn't mention previously is the new bituminous trail in yellow on the west side. You can sort of see how that fits into the roadway here. So looking more at this narrowing at Pleasant and Whispering Lane, effectively, you can't see very well. When you go to Whispering Lane today, this is what you would see. You're almost always going to see vehicles lined up here. So if you were trying to take a left or right on Pleasant Drive, you are going to need to do so while crawling out and just sort of crossing your fingers that you're not going to have somebody coming down the road. With the proposed design and that narrowing, we're going to limit parking for a stretch. We're going to bring the entrance in closer to the road. Both those two things combined are going to over double your available sight distance. What sight distance is, equates to is more time for you to see and react, both you as the driver pulling out and the driver coming down Pleasant Drive. So that's sort of the crux of the issue there. Again, still kind of fine-tuning how those radiuses are going to look, but that's what we're looking to improve from a safety perspective there and also calm traffic. Putting all that together for Pleasant Drive, this is what Pleasant Drive is ultimately going to look like at 40 feet wide in the, we'll call it the standard section. That new 10-foot trail on the west side is replacing a 5-foot sidewalk, so you're getting 5 more feet of pedestrian space, and we're losing 4 feet of road. So essentially, we're taking that real estate from the road, giving it back to the trail. The boulevard space is only going to shrink by about 1 foot, so it's not going to feel a lot different in terms of the green space that's out there today. Now looking at 4th Street, this is primarily the reclamation section that's between Pleasant Drive and effectively what would be Farm Street. You can see how that trail winds into Lions Park. This portion has not been rehabilitated anytime recently. Where you see us stopping there along 5th Street, from there to the east inward to the park has been improved more recently. So that's why we're stopping right there. One thing I did mention when I was here last month talking about the feasibility report is that what we did hear at our open house from folks on 4th Street was the concern for speeds and cut through traffic, right? So what we did look at here is the midpoint of Pleasant Drive and River Street is actually Ash Street. It's almost perfectly in the middle. It's an intersection that has an opportunity to incorporate some traffic calming, somewhat similar to what we saw at Whispering Lane or what you've seen at 15th Street and Prairie Street. This is an area where we're able to do this without impacting any driveways negatively, so it also provides a good opportunity to do that. Down below, we're showing a pretty standard section for the remainder of 4th Street. A lot of driveways, just keeping street parking relatively consistent. We are eliminating, as of right now, or proposing the elimination of the Tilden angle parking. Again, for those who are familiar with 4th Street, you'll know that there's some angled stalls there. There's about 7 of them. When we take this away, there's still going to be about 3 or 4 parallel stalls, so it's not a huge change. They effectively stated they don't really need them. It's primarily actually residents that end up using them. Police Chief Wilski has stated many times in the past that we're not big fans of this angled parking and people backing out and 90-degree backing onto our collector roadways. And again, putting that together for 4th Street, very similar, a little bit narrower than Pleasant Drive. It's 36 to 37.5 feet today, and we're actually going to be putting it back at a consistent 38 feet. So not trying to sound inconsistent with our intent typically to narrow and calm streets, but it's actually only 2 blocks of 4th Street that are 36 feet today. So most of the corridor is actually only widening about 6 inches, so 3 inches either side, just trying to bring it to a consistent width and give sufficient space, a full standard parking lane on 4th Street. Total project cost right now, this is all fees, soft cost, construction cost is just over $4.8 million with about $1.2 million in utilities and about $3.6 million for the street and storm sewer costs. Some of that will be reimbursed through special assessments over the next 10 years. Getting into the assessments, just at a high level here, again, reminder, we will have a separate hearing on the assessments themselves, but the total amount estimated right now to be collected by assessments is just about $680,000. You can see the rates there based on the type of home on the project, ranging from $6,300 per lot for single-family homes down to about $3,100 for condominiums. And at the assessment hearing, again, we'll get a little bit more into the methodology, other lot types as they pertain to this project. Where we're at in the greater picture of the project timeline, we're here tonight, March 3rd, with the public hearing. We're at about a 90-95% design right now, looking for council to approve our plans and specs and authorize us to advertise for bids. And you can see through the month of April, we'll keep working towards our bid procurement, and then in early May, the fund begins and we get to start construction and start getting this thing built. So that's how things are looking right now from a schedule perspective. Just wanted to highlight that, as part of these public improvements, we're always going to strive for excellent, project communications, whether it's through weekly updates or Bo out there putting door hangers on folks' homes when critical activities might cause disruptions. And then our engineering staff will be on this project through its entirety. The project website is now new and improved, so that is up and running. And right now, that's home to all the figures that you're seeing through these presentations. And then looking forward, that's going to be the home for construction updates and things of that nature once things are actually getting built. And that's all for my formal presentation.
Okay, thanks, Cody. I think we'll open the public hearing first and then have the discussion from council. At this time, I will open the public hearing to speak of the infrastructure project. No one wishes to speak? All right. At this time, I will close the public hearing, open up the discussion for council. Councilmember Liefeld.
Thanks, Your Honor. It's nice to see you, Cody. Know we're in good hands here. So question for you, as we're looking at the map, a lot of this section of Pleasant and Fourth, there are some pretty big sections that don't have homes, right? There's that section along Pleasant that runs along the CDA site. There's the section up front that abuts to the frontage road. And then we get down to the apartments. We take a right onto 4th Street. We've got the apartments which aren't street facing there. And then
Yeah, they do have an access.
they do have, not on 4th Street, they don't.
Correct.
So that section of 4th Street, across from that on the north side is some farmland. How did we look at assessment rates? So I know we have our mathematical equation. Was that affected at all due to the fact that there are not near as many doors in this area? How did we get to this?
Yeah, Councilmember Liefeld, thanks for that question. So the way assessments were looked at for this project is, I'll start with, maybe some of those examples of no doors, so like rear frontage. When we've had rear frontage only historically, which the CDA, for example, has rear frontage only, they are not being assessed. So traditionally, Pleasant Drive had a lot of these south of 15th Street homes that, for example, Old Bridge Lane, they were not assessed for Pleasant Drive, when it was in the back of their homes. We're usually only looking at corner lots, the front or the side lots. So that's sort of the rear frontage piece. Otherwise, what the appraiser did was just looked at, benefiting parcels on a per parcel basis. So agriculture was looked at separately. The Westview Apartments were looked at separately for, their access that just comes to Pleasant. There's a dividing parcel, as you mentioned, between the Westview Apartments and Fourth. So they were really just looked at for their benefit on Pleasant Drive. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
It does. So secondary question to that follow-up would be, it appears then that we're, as a city, we're paying a little bit more in what we're putting in because there's not as many assessments. Is that correct?
Correct. I would
Okay.
say that for the length of road that we're doing and the level of improvement, we are generating lower assessment revenue than we would with a project. For example, if we were fronted the way 4th Street is from farm to river, we would be generating, consistently, we would be generating a lot more assessment revenue. And so this is a very unique project. When you chop out even just the CDA parcel, and that's a zero, that's a very large portion.
I think you've answered my question perfectly, and for those listening who haven't been to any of these meetings for their neighborhood improvements, what I heard you say is these homeowners aren't being charged additional or more than another homeowner just because there's not as many driveways facing the street. So that is exactly what I was looking for, Cody. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Liefeld. Councilmember Beck.
Hey, Cody. I love this. I live in that little corner, as you know, right? I use Pleasant and/or 4th Street as my way to go everywhere in town. We've talked about this. I've gotten questions from my neighbors, though. Are we going to have to start using 4th up towards Walmart at times to get onto 55? Or are these roads going to be, constructed on at different times?
Councilmember Beck, so the sequencing and phasing of the project is a question, and Bo and I were actually just talking about this this week. The primary goal with this project is going to be to not have both roads in full construction at the same time, right? So there will inevitably be maybe a period of time where one road is kind of wrapping up and the other is getting started. That might be a challenge. Now, I think to answer your question specifically as it relates to those who are living along Whispering Lane, the one thing the project's going to benefit from is that Pleasant is a reclaim from Whispering to the south. So I think it's going to be easier to maintain that as a semi-open, maybe closed to through traffic, but not fully closed during that time. But we are, as we're getting into these final couple weeks, putting together our specs that require the contractor to split this up in a way that's not overly disruptive. We're going to put conditions on how long the project can, if at all, overlap in those phases. So that's something that we'll work together with our Public Works Director, Ryan, on and take a look at that specifically. Long way of answering your question. There may be a time when we have no way to send you but the long way around, and that I apologize in advance for that, but
It's
I
not
think
that far.
we'll try to minimize the duration of time that takes place.
Awesome. Thank you, Cody.
Thank you, Councilmember Beck. Any other discussion, council? Councilmember Pemble?
I'd like to make a motion to move the resolution forward on this project.
Thank you, Councilmember Pemble, with a second by Councilmember Liefeld. New discussion, council? All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails. Thank you, Cody. Nice to see you, and we will be seeing you, I'm certain.
Thank you.
As added under public safety, we will now have a resolution imposing sanctions upon liquor license holder Broadway Bar and Pizza. And for this item, we will have an introduction by our Assistant City Administrator and Clerk, Kelly Murtaugh. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Following a very brief introduction by me on this topic, you'll hear from a representative from Broadway Bar and Pizza who failed in alcohol compliance in late September. Annually, the police department does compliance checks for alcohol, tobacco, and now cannabis. A Broadway Bar and Pizza staff member sold alcohol to an underage patron. Ordinance states that the first violation, which this was, results in either a $500 civil penalty or a $1,000 civil penalty with a 3-day license suspension. The difference is linked to whether or not the establishment participates in the city's best practices program that's focused on eliminating sales of alcohol to youth. Participation in that program is voluntary. Broadway submitted no documentation of the alcohol server program, therefore the violation did result in the higher civil penalty of $1,000 with the anticipated 3-day suspension. The owner met with me on Friday and requested a hearing before council. So we do have Broadway representatives here, and I would invite Dean Hansen to come up and speak on behalf of Broadway Bar and Pizza tonight.
Can you ask a question? Let's wait until after.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm happy to say that I've never had to do this before. My colleagues and I have a collective 60 years with Broadway Pizza restaurants, and I can count on one hand that many failures. And so it's got pie on our face here. We do believe perhaps some of our information didn't get given to the appropriate parties. I understand some of the requirements to be part of that SAFE program require staff training, which we feel we meet and exceed through a Minnesota State program, which is online. And we have certificates for each and every one of our current and past employees. I would also add that we teach our staff to ID anybody that appears 40 or under. And the staff member that failed the compliance check was terminated within, I believe, 2.5 hours. We do take it very seriously. We're embarrassed by it, and it's not common. We want you to know that if you're not familiar with our brand, that we are not a nightclub. We've been in business since 1953. Our current ownership team has been running the restaurants since 1991. And this particular restaurant here in Hastings, we run about a 10 to 14% beer, liquor, and wine sales. So very, very low in comparison to our overall food sales and total. Ultimately, what we would like to do is humbly request that sanctions be reduced to fines already paid and no loss, no suspension of our liquor license. We intend to operate with integrity and honor and genuine caring and be a good steward of what we've been given.
Thank you so much, Dean.
Thank you.
Yes. Council discussion. Councilmember Verichoff.
Thank you, Your Honor. Kelly, could I just ask a quick follow-up question about the best practices program in terms of what that entails, like amount of hours? I'm wondering if the components of that are a particular hardship to Broadway Pizza. I know that we have two other businesses that also have undergone this recently and did or I think one of them completed anyway, could you just tell me a little bit about that program? I'm not totally sure about it.
Certainly, Councilmember, I can tell you about the program. There's a form that applicants are asked to complete. Renewals can also, so businesses can add this at any point in their process of their license with the city. Actually, Dean Hansen went through the requirements of the best practices program. Our program requires that servers, at least a certain percentage of servers within an organization, join our training that we deliver annually. They can also, though, seek a waiver for that training and choose something like Dean Hansen mentioned the state program, which is a different program, several hours online training, but similar content and acceptable, likely acceptable content. So that's one of the most important things. And then they must have a rule about seeking asking licenses from folks who look under 40. So typically it shows up in a handbook or something, and they need to provide us documentation of that kind of thing. Training needs to be an ongoing commitment. And then there are this other kinds of elective kinds of things that can also bolster the best practices participation. So it could be automatic card readers that would just, someone doesn't even have to look at the card, they run it through in the automatic card reader, for example, would take care of that. So there's a number of elective pieces that exist in that. And that helps ensure that they are taking active steps toward eliminating underage service. Is that sufficient? Does that help?
That is more than sufficient. Thank you very much. Just one final point, Mayor, may I?
Yes.
Is there a significant hours between the difference between the state program and this, and a much higher cost between the two?
I don't know what the cost might be for the state program. We do not charge for our program, and it's in person, it's required in person, and it's about 2 hours of training. I think the state program might actually be more time, but it is online, not required in person. So differences there. I think that there would be similar content for both programs, but we do ask for proof of training so that we can provide a waiver, so that we know why folks aren't coming to our training.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Verchoff, and thank you, Kelly. Councilmember Leifeld.
I have a follow-up question for Kelly as well. So I know our training is once per year. I've been to it myself a few times. And when do we give that training?
Generally, we do that in the fall.
In the fall? Mm-hmm. And when did Broadway open?
Earlier last year, late spring.
Late spring? Okay, then next follow-up, as Dean had mentioned, that they have certificates for all current and past employees. Have we verified those certificates for all of those employees? And, I mean, if they're in compliance is the question, because it sounds to me, per Dean's comment, he said that maybe not given to the appropriate parties, some of the information not given to the appropriate parties. Are we the appropriate parties?
I can explain that.
Thank you.
As part of either the initial application or the renewal, we have a best practices form that applicants may submit to us to indicate their desire to either participate or not participate in our best practices program. And if you choose to participate or not participate, you have to identify that on the form. And if you choose to not participate but want credit, equal credit for it, you need to provide a description of the program that you are substituting for our own training. And so that is the part that didn't come to us, is they did not specify, we're going to do all these things that are on this list, but we're not going to use your program here, we're going to use the state program. That didn't come to us. So we have not checked certificates or anything like that, because this all came about following the compliance violation.
Okay. Based on that information, I would say I'm not just going to say, geez, just charge them $500, but I think we need to know if they have the certificates on file for the employees and the employee who has been let go had completed said training, then I'd be totally in line with the $500. Yes, there was a problem, but the due diligence had been done prior not a new business, obviously, but new to town. Rules and laws, I know, can vary from municipality to municipality. So I don't know if that's something, I would make a motion that would state that we would reduce this to a $500 fine in the event that they are able to provide documentation that supports they have done the state program as indicated. I think that was well
Thank you,
said.
Councilmember Leifeld. And I think Councilmember Leifeld, I think that is their idea.
And that was my motion.
Point of
Did you wanna
clarification.
speak, Dan?
Yeah, if I can interrupt before we get too far with motions.
Yeah.
This really should be formally done by a resolution, which is not written this evening because of how late this came up. It certainly helps to know council's
I will
thoughts and
withdraw
intent
my
to where to go.
motion and request to table this until further information can be obtained.
Until 3:16, yes.
Okay,
I would second that.
awesome.
No motion needed, but thank you, Councilmember House. All right. All right, then, under administration, as always, the first meeting of the month, we will have a PFAS update.
Thank you, Mayor. Brief update this evening. Construction continues. We're anticipating that the underground work, some excavation and pipe installation will be completed, and then moving on to the next stage in late March. So rock and winter weather just make for some slower work, but it continues. A couple of months ago, had noted that a neighboring property had claims or complaints about cracked concrete. Those claims have been submitted to insurance for review. I do want to note that our contract with Magni definitively states that Magni, as the contractor, is responsible for damage claims made due to the work. Also of note, earlier this evening, March 2nd, City Council held a closed session meeting to discuss legal strategy regarding potential litigation against the 3M company. There is no action this evening. And then last note, we have required mediation with Carboni's Pizza. That is scheduled for April 30th. If there are any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions, council? All right. Any announcements, council? All right, I do have a few. Happy birthday to the city of Hastings, incorporated as a city 169 years ago on March 7th, 1857, if you didn't know. First review of community investment fund applications will be Monday, March 9th. You can bring your clean used sports equipment in good usable condition to sports equipment swap on Tuesday, March 10th at the high school. Meetings coming up. Monday, March 9th, 7 p.m., a Finance Committee meeting, and also a 7 p.m. Planning Commission meeting. Wednesday, March 11th, 6 p.m., Arts and Culture Commission meeting. Thursday, March 12th, a 6 p.m. HEDRA meeting. Monday, March 16th, 5:30 p.m., City Council workshop, and a 7 p.m. City Council regular meeting. With that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Councilmember Pemble? Councilmember House? All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And we are adjourned.